The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out.
The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here. In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. The King and members of the royal family have led the nation in paying tribute to its war dead on Remembrance Sunday. Israel has told its citizens not to attend cultural or sports events in countries including the UK, saying it has intelligence that pro-Palestinian groups intend to harm Israelis. Donald Trump has completed a clean sweep of the swing states in the U.S. election, winning in Arizona, the last state to be called. Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with political and PR consultant Leon Emirali and the barrister and former Conservative Minister Anna Soubry. Welcome both. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, the Metro reports on the Princess of Wales paying tribute to the nation's war dead on her biggest day back to royal duties after receiving cancer treatment. The Telegraph says Sir Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron are planning a last-minute effort to try to stop Donald Trump reducing U.S. support for Ukraine. The Guardian adds that the two leaders are meeting in Paris for France's Armistice Day service as a show of European solidarity after Trump's re-election. The Daily Mail says Labour is facing a backlash tonight after a minister admitted a vital military boost might not be delivered within 5 years. The Eye says some Home Office civil servants believe that Labour's plans to tackle small boats will have little impact on channel crossings and illegal immigration. The Financial Times reports that the world's largest cryptocurrency, that's Bitcoin, has hit a new all-time high of more than $80,000 after traders bet on Donald Trump winning the U.S. election. And the Star reports on British actor Damian Lewis likening Donald Trump to King Henry VIII. Don't tell Melania. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And as I mentioned, we're joined tonight by Leon Emirali and Anna Soubry. Welcome both. Thank you for being with us. Let's start with the Daily Telegraph and a story that I was mentioning there. So front page of the Telegraph, Starmer plots to thwart Trump on Ukraine. Now, we all know that Donald Trump said he could end the war in a day. We have just found out in the past hour or so that actually he had a call with Vladimir Putin asking him to not escalate the war. So, Anna, talk us through this development and where you think we stand with Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ignore the headline because I think it's unfortunate. It sounds like it's a criticism, which I don't think it is. But what this is all about is that tomorrow, Keir Starmer will become the first UK leader to go to France to join their commemorations for Armistice Day. So that in itself is quite historic. But it's obviously a great opportunity for him to talk to Starmer, and to talk to Macron. And according to the Telegraph, those talks are going to include about how they can persuade Joe Biden, particularly to use a certain type of missile to go into Russia, so that the Americans will allow that to happen, because even Biden has held back to some extent as to what the allies, if you like, can do. And
specifically, it's the Storm Shadow missiles deep into Russia.
Yes. And so, obviously, the idea is because Trump has, I mean, his big pal is Putin, so it doesn't sound as if he's going to be particularly sympathetic to the Ukrainian people in their struggles to get rid of this invader. And so what they're trying to do is not just put the money in place, which is apparently what Biden wants to do, but actually look at the military side of it as well. The Telegraph calls it thwarts Trump on Ukraine. Actually, I think it's much better to say actually to support Ukraine in trying to become that, retain its sovereignty and independence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting tactic by Starmer and by the EU leaders, because Donald Trump is famously thin-skinned, and could this be seen as going behind his back, undermining his foreign policy, when perhaps actually Starmer and co should be speaking directly to the transitional team and saying to Trump, listen, you know, let's take a different approach to this if we can, because I think Donald Trump might be looking at this and thinking, well, hang on a minute, the EU are sort of doing something in counter to what I've suggested I'll do as president. So it's an interesting tactic. Obviously, there needs to be a resolution on Ukraine, and there is a clear split between what Donald Trump wants to do, what's in his interests, and what is in the EU's and the UK's interests.
Which I don't think it's EU, actually, this is, at the moment, this is Starmer and
Europe,
Macron.
basically.
So it is two influential, important leaders in Europe.
And going to that point, let's look at The Guardian, the front page there, which speaks to exactly what you were just mentioning there, Anna. The headline, Starmer at French Armistice Day in show of European solidarity. Because since the election of Donald Trump, a lot of people have been asking themselves the question, what happens to the Western alliance? Call it NATO, call it what you will, but you know, is there going to be a split? And what is the European, not EU, but sort of more continental, as in including the UK, response? So what do you make, Leon, of this? Starmer, in effect, showing European solidarity by standing side to side with Macron?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing, and we're a far cry away from a former Prime Minister who was questioning whether France were a friend or a foe. Right. I mean, you know, it's good that we are on those terms now with our European neighbours. So I think that is a good thing. Starmer's got a real problem, and it's Donald Trump-shaped, unfortunately, for him, because there is an opportunity to cosy up to the new president, potentially take advantage of some economic trade arrangement that might be in place for Britain, or does he stick close to the European allies? Both have their pros, both have their cons, and I think that is something Number 10 have to figure out. Certainly on defence, let's leave the economy for one side, certainly on defence, it looks as though Starmer is siding with the European allies, and in my opinion, that's the right thing to do. I think he does have to be careful, because there could be an opportunity for a closer relationship with the US under Trump. But, you know, Starmer now has to represent a good Prime Minister, being able to straddle both of those camps.
And you think about it, I mean, today, and of course tomorrow as well, when it's actually the 11th day of the 11th month and so on, and when we remember all those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. But we often really concentrate on the Second World War, because so few of those veterans are still alive, sadly, for obvious reasons. But, you know, what saved our freedom was working with not just our colleagues in the rest of Europe, but it was the Americans. I mean, without the Americans, arguably, we wouldn't have won the Second World War. And obviously the Canadians and those... But, you know, America stood shoulder to shoulder with us, with the rest of Europe, in defeating fascism and Nazism. And it's kind of like, you know, you wish that Trump would remember his history and the fantastic role that America played then, and it should be playing that role, continuing to play that role in seeing off Putin and his danger to our freedoms.
One of Trump's main criticism towards the rest of NATO is that they don't pay up as they should. And, you know, he does have a point, which leads us neatly to the Daily Mail, sort of. So front page there, the headline, when will Labour give forces funds they need? So here is that we're hearing that Labour faced an angry backlash after a minister admitted a vital boost to the military may not be delivered within 5 years. Because, you know, we can talk about alliances, but ultimately it's about putting money in defence, Leon.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And my take from the general election campaign here was that Labour were going to commit to this 2.5%. Donald Trump's actually asking for 3% now, so we need to go above and beyond just 2.5%. But we are, as a country, it is imperative that we do spend a good amount, the right amount on defence. We are living in a more dangerous world than ever before. And I think that for this government, they have to go in, they want to fix the foundations. That's Labour's slogan. The best way to fix the foundations is to get our military in shape to ensure that we are a safe country. And I think they have to come up with an answer on this pretty soon.
But I mean, I was a defence minister when I was in government. It was one of the most rewarding jobs that I ever did, actually. I enjoyed it enormously. And it was a great honour to do it.
Why? Why specifically?
Oh, to work with our armed forces. And the calibre is extraordinary. And the civil servants. I mean, the MOD is just the most extraordinary group of people to work with. And I think that, as I say, the quality of the people, of whatever rank, was something I'll never forget. And we did do some good work, but we had that problem when I was, you know, a Conservative minister serving in Conservative governments, where we didn't give our armed forces, our defence budget was not being given the money that many of us wanted it to be given. And that has continued. So it's really rich of, you know, Conservative members of Parliament, including Priti Patel talking to Trevor, as she did do this morning, criticising Labour for this, when actually the Conservatives failed to invest in our armed forces in the way that they should have done to make us fit. And remember that moment when Boris Johnson said, "Oh, we don't need tanks." Do you remember that exchange with Tobias Ellwood when he was a defence minister and Johnson dismissed all of this? And what have we seen with the invasion by the Russians of Ukraine was the use of tanks. So it's complicated. There are no simple solutions, but at the end of the day, it's about dosh. It's about money.
OK, well, it'll be particularly difficult for them right now when we all know the fallout of the budget has been a lot of unhappy businesses and farmers, but difficult decisions for the government. Let's go to the Metro now. And a very poignant picture, well, two pictures there of Princess Kate and the King, and the words there, solemn duty. Anna, I mean, you know, the ceremony, Remembrance Sunday, is always touching, maybe particularly touching this year because you saw both the King and Princess Kate, you know, when we know they've had a very difficult year with cancer, both of them.
Yes, and to see her out when, you know, she doesn't have to do this. She could have stayed at home. But I think she's absolutely driven by her public duty. We know the Queen wanted to be there, but she couldn't be there because her doctors told her that she was not going to attend because she's poorly. With this chest infection. But it is poignant. But, you know, for the royal family, and again, it kind of touched on what we were talking before about this, you know, my experiences working with the armed forces, this profound sense of duty, because they understand that the huge sacrifices that people make, not just those who actually serve and put themselves on the front line, and they suffer terrible injuries and, of course, the ultimate sacrifice, the loss of life, but also the families as well. It's a huge part of this act of remembrance because they also make sacrifices. They actually also serve. And I think the royal family, it just touches them. And I think it's probably because of that profound sense of duty that they feel to our nation. And so they recognise the service of all of those.
And it's a poignant and timely reminder, I think, of the horrors of war. You know, we're thinking of these young, largely men, who lost their lives, and we're seeing that happen, not in this country, thankfully, but around the world. We are in a very dangerous geopolitical moment, and I think it was a timely reminder of the horrors of war, and the royal family do a fantastic job of leading those commemorations.
Yeah, because, I mean, obviously, apart from very few veterans, no one really remembers World War II anymore. We have known peace for decades and decades.
Yeah, it was interesting. I watched the festival last night from the Albert Hall, and they had three people. They had somebody from the Commonwealth, who I think was her father, anyway, a member of her family who had served. And then there was a woman, one of the last survivors from World War II, who had served in the RAF. And then there was a little boy who talked about his father and said, we must never forget and we must understand as children. And I thought that was just hugely powerful and poignant, because we mustn't let people forget what this is all about, why it's so important that we remember that sacrifice. And also the horrors of war.
Yeah. And what it took to achieve peace. Liam, Anna, thank you both so much. Coming up, we'll talk about why Labour's plans to tackle criminal gangs might not have much impact on Channel crossings.
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry. It is an anti-woman agenda.
Sky News, get the full story first. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Can you beat Donald Trump, Governor? President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brat.
Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Free, wherever you get your news.
Excited. I've had severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Don't say a vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me in the studio, political and PR consultant Leon Emirali and barrister and former Conservative Minister Anna Soubry. OK, let's go straight to the front page of The Eye. A story here on migration. The headline, Smash the Gangs Won't Work. Now, of course, Smash the Gangs has been the Prime Minister's mantra over migration. And just last week, he announced a further £75 million for the Border Security Command. He says that illegal migration should be treated like terrorism. But now we're hearing in the story that nobody, quote, understands how the new Border Security Command will work. Anna.
Yes, I mean, there's not much detail in this story in The Eye, but it's a headline.
And it's insiders, so it's not
exactly. But it's a headline and it's bullet points that this government will not want to hear going into next week, of course. I think the point they're forgetting is that what Starmer's doing is he's relying on his experience as a former director of public prosecutions to say, if you look at the way that we deal with terrorism, which is intelligence-led, which is working internationally, you can actually begin to make big inroads into this. It's a huge task for him. It's a huge target, if you like, that they've set by saying, we are going to smash the gangs. So he's got to make it work. So I have hope in him because of his past and his abilities that actually he could deliver it, because we've got to do something about it, and it makes sense to me to do it internationally and do it in that more that cleverer way than just seeing it as simple criminality, but looking at it with all the skills that you need as if it's...
Because it's both trafficking, but the truth is there is also a massive demand for it as well.
Massively. And I think, you know, Anna's absolutely right on the international component of this. That's the only way this can be stopped. But politically, smash the gangs isn't very different to stop the boats.
No,
and Rishi Sunak said, judge me on it, judge me on it. And Keir Starmer's saying the same thing. And, you know, if we judge him in the way we judge Rishi Sunak on it, then it's not good news for his political fortune. So I do think this is such a tough policy area to get right. And, you know, governments have been trying for years to get this right, and they haven't been able to. And I do just think that there needs to be creative, fresh thinking on this issue. Otherwise, it's just going to create a rod for their own backs again.
You see, because even if you put in, which we should do, safe routes for people who are escaping war zones, the horrors of war and all the attendant features of it, that actually won't smash the gangs and solve the problem.
There'll still be demand.
Well, it's also that you've got people, you know, there are some people who get on those boats who've actually taken a journey that's taken them years to get to Calais or wherever it is they get the boat. So it's almost like, to use that word, which we're familiar with in the criminal justice system, there's this huge backlog. So even if you did put the safe routes in, which we should do in my view, it won't solve the fact that there are still these numbers coming in different routes that have taken years to do it. So it's a big problem. But
it is. And an international one, like you said. I mean, no single country can look at it individually. Let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Telegraph. You know, a lot of criticism from the budget, one of the worst ones about the national insurance increases for employers. Here, pubs and restaurants told to suck it up over national insurance increases. Leon.
Yeah, I mean, this is the story that the Chief Secretary to Treasury, Darren Jones, Rachel Reeves' number 2, has come out and said, look, businesses, they might complain about national insurance increases, but get on with it. I don't think that's smart, because this is a real impact on small businesses, big businesses. It's going to take a chunk off of their bottom lines. And it's not just pubs and restaurants. Supermarkets, we heard Tesco say this is going to cost them £1 billion.
Hospitality as well.
Over a 5-year period. And hospitality. And there's lots of small businesses in those sectors. And I do think Labour need to come up with something that's slightly more, shall we say, pleasant to businesses that express concerns here, because it's not good enough to just say, get on with it, get on with the job. We expect the government to be on the side of business to come up with a solution.
I mean, they will say, obviously, that they had very difficult decisions to make, and this is how they help working people, to go back to that debate. What have you made of it?
Well, you see, it's so difficult, this, because when you say you're not going to put up taxes and you're not going to put up NI on individuals and VAT, then how are you going to raise the money that we desperately need to raise, not just to fill the black hole, but actually to invest in infrastructure and put the money into our public services, which are largely on their knees? My response is, OK, so where does this money come from? But it is a big gamble, because if you want growth, then that growth comes from businesses and from investment in infrastructure. And so it is a gamble that Labour have, that by making this hit of extra money coming in, which we need in the way that I described to do, you don't depress businesses so that they are going to have to make redundancies or pass on the costs to the customers.
And these are businesses with small margins. You know,
Yeah,
we look at hospitality, we look at pubs and restaurants, tiny, tiny margins.
Yes.
Things like a big NI hit could put businesses out of business entirely. So
it doesn't
really
sound...
sensitive.
It was right to be very cautious about this. It is 13.5% to 15%, but with very, very tight margins. And some still not recovering from COVID, of course. I mean, right on the edge of going under. It will have an impact.
Going to have to leave it there for the moment. Leon Emirali, Anna Subri, thank you both so much. And coming up next on Sky News at 11. The nation's war dead have been commemorated by the King as tributes are paid around the UK.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.